Billionaire Landon Pierce bought the abandoned Silver Creek Ranch for $2.3 million, not for profit, but for silence. After a decade of boardroom warfare and relentless headlines, the 2,000-acre Texas property was supposed to be his fortress of solitude, left empty while contractors prepared renovations. But when he returned 3 weeks later, smoke curled from the chimney he'd personally locked shut. Inside his living room stood a maid and her 6-year-old daughter, frozen like ghosts caught in lamplight. The woman's eyes held terror. The child clutched a stuffed lamb. They'd turned his refuge into their sanctuary. What Landon did next wouldn't just determine their fate. It would unravel everything he thought he knew about power, home, and what it means to truly own something. But first, he had to choose. Call security or listen to the truth that might shatter him. Welcome to Life in Stories, where every tale reminds us what truly matters. If this is your first time here, subscribe so you never miss a story that might change how you see the world. And tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. The Texas sun bled gold across the horizon as Landon Pierce's truck rolled down the gravel driveway of Silver Creek Ranch. Dust rose behind him like ghosts disturbed from sleep. He'd driven 3 hours from Austin with nothing but silence and static on the radio, craving the emptiness he'd paid for. 2,000 acres of mesquite, rusted fence posts, and forgetting. But something was wrong. Smoke curled from the stone chimney. Thin, deliberate. Not wildfire, not accident. Someone had lit a fire inside his locked house. Landon killed the engine and sat motionless, jaw tight, pulse ticking in his throat. Through the cracked windshield, he could see light flickering behind the curtains. Curtains that hadn't been there 3 weeks ago. The windows he remembered as broken now glowed amber with warmth. He stepped out, boots crunching on gravel. The evening air carried the scent of something cooking, stew, maybe. Herbs. His stomach twisted, not from hunger, but from the sharp edge of violation mixing with confusion. The front door hung slightly ajar. He'd padlocked it himself. Landon's hand hovered over his phone. One call. That's all it would take. Sheriff's Department, trespassing done. He'd been burned before. Squatters who trashed properties, opportunists who saw wealth and smelled weakness. But he didn't call. Instead, he pushed the door open. The interior stopped him cold. The floors he remembered buried under decades of grime now gleamed in the firelight. The broken furniture had been cleared. Burlap curtains, stitched by hand, softened the bare windows. A pot simmered over the hearth, steam rising in lazy spirals. And standing in the center of the room, frozen mid-sweep with a broom clutched in both hands, was a woman. She was younger than him, late 20s, maybe 30. Deep brown skin, hair wrapped in a faded scarf. Her eyes were calm but watchful, like someone who'd learned long ago not to expect mercy, but still hoped for it anyway. Beside her, half hidden behind a worn skirt, stood a little girl. 6 years old, maybe younger. Wide eyes, skin like polished mahogany. In her arms, a stuffed lamb with one ear missing. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the woman spoke, voice low and steady despite the tremor beneath. "Please, we'll leave right now. We didn't steal anything, I swear it." Landon's throat felt tight. He should have been angry. Should have demanded answers, asserted ownership, reclaimed control. That's what men like him did. Men who'd spent decades building empires out of pipelines and logistics and ruthless negotiation. But the anger wouldn't come. Instead, his eyes traced the room. No graffiti, no broken bottles, no signs of chaos or contempt. Just care. The kind of care that took time effort. The kind you didn't waste on a place you planned to abandon. "What are you doing here?" His voice came out quieter than he intended. The woman exhaled slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath since he walked in. "My name is Alma. This is my daughter Maya. She glanced down at the girl, then back at him. I used to work for the last owner, before the ranch went under. When he died, I lost my job, then my apartment. I didn't know anyone still owned this place. The barn was open, so we... She stopped, swallowing hard. We just needed somewhere safe, just for a little while. Landon looked at the child. Maya's eyes blinked up at him, solemn and unafraid in the way only children who'd seen too much could be. "We can go after dinner, sir," she said softly. "Mama made stew." Something cracked inside him, not loudly, not dramatically, just a hairline fracture in the armor he'd been wearing since his father died, since the boardroom betrayals, since he'd learned that silence was safer than trust. He thought of his penthouse in Austin. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, empty rooms that echoed when he walked through them. He thought of the ranch, forgotten, rotting, purchased on impulse, because he couldn't stand the noise anymore. And now, for the first time in months, this place felt alive. Landon set his keys on the table. "Eat first," he said, voice rough. "Then we'll talk." Alma blinked, confusion flickering across her face. "You're not calling the police?" "Not yet." Relief and wariness warred in her expression, but she nodded. Maya tugged her mother's hand, whispering something Landon couldn't hear. They sat by the fire, three strangers around a table that didn't belong to any of them. The stew was simple, beans stretched with wild herbs, vegetables foraged from the overgrown garden. But it was warm, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Landon Pierce wasn't eating alone. Outside, the Texas sky deepened to indigo. Inside, the fire crackled softly. Neither of them knew it yet, but everything had already changed. The stew settled warm in Landon's stomach as thunder rumbled low across the Texas sky. Through the window, he could see clouds gathering like dark fists. The firelight danced across Alma's face as she wiped Maya's chin with a cloth worn soft from use. "Tell me how you ended up here," Landon said, leaning back in the wooden chair that creaked under his weight. "The real story." Alma's hands stilled. She glanced at Maya, who was tracing patterns in the condensation on her water cup, then back at him. "You sure you want to hear it?" "I'm still here, aren't I?" She exhaled slowly, fingers clasping together. "I worked here 7 years ago. The owner back then, Mr. Garrett, he was kind, paid fair. Let me bring Maya when I couldn't afford childcare." Her voice softened with memory. This place was beautiful then. Working ranch, horses in the pasture, garden full of tomatoes and squash. Lightning flickered outside, casting brief shadows. When he got sick, everything fell apart fast. Medical bills, creditors. The ranch was seized and auctioned. I lost my job. She paused, jaw tight. Found work at a hotel in Dallas, overnight shifts, barely covered rent and Maya's daycare. Then I got pneumonia, missed too many shifts. They let me go. Landon watched her hands, calloused, strong, the hands of someone who'd worked for everything. "We got evicted 3 months ago," Alma continued, voice barely above a whisper. "Shelters were full. I had $40 and a daughter who needed stability more than I needed pride." She looked up at him, eyes steady despite the shame threading through her words. "I remembered this place, remembered feeling safe here. So we walked. Took us 2 days when we found the barn door open and the house empty. Her voice cracked. "I just needed her to sleep without fear." Maya's small voice cut through the silence. "Mama cried the first night, but then she said we were pioneers, like in my books." Alma's cheeks flushed. "Maya." "It's true," the girl insisted, turning to Landon with earnest eyes. "Pioneers make homes where there's nothing. Mama said we could do that too." Landon felt something shift in his chest, a tightness he couldn't name. He'd spent a decade in boardrooms surrounded by people who lied with tailored suits and polished smiles. consultants who inflated numbers, partners who smiled while plotting betrayals. His own legal team had celebrated his father's death as a strategic opportunity. But this woman, sitting across from him in a house she had no right to occupy, spoke truth so raw it hurt to hear. "You fixed the floors," he said quietly. "Found supplies in the barn. Mr. Garrett always kept extras. The curtains? Old burlap sacks just needed thread." He looked around the room, at the care embedded in every corner. "Why go to all this trouble if you thought you'd have to leave?" Alma met his gaze. "Because even temporary shelter deserves respect. And because I wanted Maya to see that just because life knocks you down doesn't mean you stop trying to make things beautiful." Thunder cracked overhead, closer now. Landon stood abruptly, chair scraping against wood. Alma tensed, instinctively pulling Maya closer. He saw the fear flicker across her face, the expectation of dismissal, of eviction, of doors closing once again. But instead, he said, "Stay." Alma blinked. "What?" "Not as trespassers, as caretakers." His voice was firm, decided. "The ranch needs someone who actually gives a damn about it. Clearly, that's not me." "You can't be serious." "I'm always serious. Ask anyone who's negotiated with me." He crossed his arms. "You'll maintain the property, make repairs. Keep it from falling apart completely. In exchange, you live here, rent-free." Tears welled in Alma's eyes. "Why would you trust us?" "Because you already take better care of this place than I ever have." Maya's face split into a grin so bright it rivaled the lightning outside. "Does that mean we can keep the chickens?" Landon's mouth twitched. "There are chickens?" "6 of them," Maya announced proudly. "They were hiding in the old coop. Mama fixed the fence, and now they lay eggs every morning." He shook his head, something dangerously close to a smile forming. "Then yes, keep the chickens." The weeks that followed rewrote something fundamental in Landon's understanding of worth. Every weekend, he drove down from Austin. Each time, the ranch transformed further. Alma repaired roof leaks using YouTube tutorials. Maya painted the chicken coop bright yellow. Together, they cleared the garden and planted seeds salvaged from the barn. Landon brought supplies, lumber, paint, groceries he pretended were leftovers. Maya followed him everywhere, asking endless questions about engines and fence posts, and why rich people lived in buildings that touched the sky. One Saturday evening, a storm rolled in with fury. Power lines snapped, plunging the ranch into darkness. They lit candles and huddled in the living room while rain hammered the roof. Maya fell asleep, curled against Alma's side, stuffed lamb tucked under her chin. Alma hummed softly, a melody Landon didn't recognize but felt in his bones anyway. He watched the way she brushed curls from her daughter's forehead, the tenderness in gestures most people never noticed. "She hasn't slept this peacefully in months," Alma whispered. Outside, thunder rumbled like a heartbeat. Inside, something quiet and profound settled over them. Landon leaned back, watching firelight play across the walls, and thought, maybe peace doesn't come from isolation, but from people. The first article appeared on a Tuesday morning. Landon was in his Austin office reviewing quarterly reports when his phone erupted with notifications, text messages, emails, calls from board members he hadn't spoken to in months. The headline glared from his screen. Billionaire's ranch romance, oil mogul houses single mother in secret hideaway. His jaw clenched as he scrolled through the piece. Half-truths twisted into insinuation, anonymous sources. Blurry photos of Alma hanging laundry, speculation about inappropriate arrangements, and questionable judgment. By Wednesday, it had metastasized. Local news picked it up, then regional outlets. By Thursday, his former business rival, Nelson Hendrick, still bitter from a pipeline deal gone south 3 years ago, had given an interview suggesting Landon was playing savior for tax benefits or worse, exploiting vulnerable women for personal gratification. The gossip in town turned vicious. Whispers at the feed store. Pointed stares at the diner. Someone spray-painted charity case across the ranch's mailbox. Alma scrubbed it off before Maya could see. Friday afternoon, Landon's legal team descended on Silver Creek Ranch like vultures circling a carcass. 3 attorneys in suits too expensive for gravel driveways, led by Patricia Coles, senior counsel, a woman whose ruthlessness Landon had once admired. "We need to talk," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. They stood in the yard while Alma worked inside, unaware. Maya chased chickens near the coop, her laughter a bright counterpoint to the tension crackling in the air. "This situation is untenable," Patricia began, pulling out her tablet. "Investors are spooked. The board is questioning your judgment. We've fielded 17 media requests in 2 days. Landon crossed his arms. And you need to end this arrangement. Immediately." Her voice was clinical, detached. "Provide relocation assistance if you want. Generous severance, first month's rent elsewhere, but she cannot stay here. She's the caretaker. She's a liability." Patricia's eyes were steel. "Landon, I've protected your interests for 8 years. Trust me on this. You're one viral TikTok away from shareholders demanding your resignation." Another attorney chimed in, younger, eager. "Sir, if anything happens, if the child gets injured on the property, if there's even a hint of impropriety, you're exposed legally and financially. The optics alone could tank the Beaumont merger." Landon looked toward the house. Through the window, he could see Alma kneading dough, flour dusting her forearms. She'd started baking bread on Thursdays. Said it made the house smell like hope. "She's done nothing wrong," he said quietly. "That's irrelevant," Patricia snapped. "Public perception is reality. And right now, reality says you're either a fool or something worse." The younger attorney softened his tone, playing good cop. "We're not heartless. We'll make sure she lands on her feet. But you have to think about your legacy. Your father built this company from—" "Don't." Landon's voice cut like a blade. "Don't invoke my father." Silence settled, thick and uncomfortable. Patricia sighed. "I'll give you until Monday. Make the right choice, Landon, before it's made for you." They left in a cloud of dust and unspoken threats. That evening, as the sun bled orange across the horizon, Landon found Alma on the porch. A suitcase sat beside her feet, old, battered, held together with duct tape. His stomach dropped. "You heard," he said. She nodded, not looking at him. "Town's not big. Word travels." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as they gripped the porch railing. "You don't have to explain. I understand how the world works. People like me don't get to stay in places like this. Alma, I'm grateful. For everything. But I won't be the reason you lose what you've built." She finally met his eyes, and he saw the familiar resignation there, the look of someone who'd learned not to expect permanence. "We'll leave tonight. Maya doesn't need to see—" "No." The word came out harder than he intended. Alma blinked. "Landon, you have responsibilities. An empire. You made this place live again." He stepped closer, voice rough with emotion he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. "You made me live again. I'm not letting lawyers and gossip and cowards dictate what's right." Her eyes filled with tears. "You'll lose everything." "I've had everything. It's emptier than you'd think." The screen door burst open. Maya stood there, face streaked with tears, stuffed lamb dangling from one hand. "Did we do something bad?" Landon's heart cracked clean through. He knelt, bringing himself eye level with the child. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong." "Then why is Mama crying? Why do we have to leave?" Her lower lip trembled. "I thought this was home now." He reached out, hesitated, then gently squeezed her small shoulder. "You just reminded me what home feels like, and I'm not giving that up." Maya threw her arms around his neck, sobbing into his collar. Over her head, Landon met Alma's gaze. saw disbelief warring with hope. "Are you sure?" Alma whispered. "I've never been more sure of anything." That night, storm winds rattled the ranch windows. Landon stood alone in the darkness, phone buzzing with increasingly frantic messages from board members, attorneys, and PR consultants. By morning, his decision would be public. The empire his father built might crumble. Shareholders would revolt, the media would feast. But as lightning illuminated the house, their house, he felt something he hadn't experienced since before his father died: peace. Not the hollow silence of isolation, but the profound quiet of knowing, finally, what truly mattered. The media circus descended on Silver Creek Ranch like locusts on Monday morning. Satellite trucks lined the gravel driveway. Reporters jockeyed for position near the porch. Cameras bristled like weapons, hungry for the billionaire's downfall or his defense. They didn't particularly care which. Landon stood inside, watching through the window as the chaos assembled. His hands were steady, his resolve iron. Alma appeared beside him, Maya clinging to her leg. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "We can still leave, disappear. Let this blow over." He turned to her, something soft breaking through his usually guarded expression. "I've spent 10 years building things that don't matter. Not this time." At exactly 10 o'clock, Landon stepped onto the porch. The questions erupted immediately, a wall of sound, accusations wrapped in journalistic courtesy. "Mr. Pierce, is it true you've been housing?" Allegations of impropriety. Investors calling for your resignation. He raised one hand. Silence rippled outward. "I'm not here to defend myself," he began, voice carrying across the yard. "I'm here to announce a decision that some will call reckless, others will call it naive." He paused. "I call it overdue." Behind him, the screen door opened. Alma stepped out, Maya tucked against her side. The cameras swiveled, flashes erupting. Landon continued, steady and unflinching. 3 weeks ago, I bought this ranch thinking I needed isolation. I was wrong. What I needed was to remember what land is actually for." He gestured to the house, the fields, the distant line of mesquite trees. "This place was rotting from neglect. Alma didn't trespass. She rescued it. And in doing so, she reminded me that property without purpose is just expensive emptiness." A reporter shouted, "So you're admitting she was squatting?" "I'm admitting I was the one trespassing," Landon shot back, "on my own humanity." He pulled out a folded document from his jacket. "Effective immediately, Silver Creek Ranch is being transferred into a community trust. It will be converted into a cooperative farm and education center, open to families who need temporary housing, kids who want to learn sustainable agriculture, and anyone looking for proof that second chances aren't just for people with money." The crowd murmured, cameras clicking frantically. "Alma will serve as caretaker and permanent resident, with full authority over operations. This isn't charity, it's correction. For too long, I forgot that land was meant to grow people, not profits." A veteran journalist from the Austin Chronicle called out, "What about your company? Your investors?" Landon's jaw tightened. "I've resigned from the board. Let them build their pipelines without me. I'm building something else now." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from the back, someone started clapping. A local farmer Landon recognized from the feed store. Then another, and another. Not everyone. Some reporters still looked skeptical, some cameras still hunted for scandal, but enough to know he'd chosen right. 6 months later, Silver Creek Ranch looked like something from a dream. The garden sprawled across 2 acres, tomatoes climbing stakes, squash vines winding through rich soil, children kneeling in dirt with seed packets and wonder. Alma had organized crop rotations using knowledge passed down from her grandmother. The old stables had been converted into a riding school. Local kids learned horsemanship on weekends, their laughter echoing across fields that had been silent for decades. 3 families lived in the refurbished bunkhouses, temporary residents rebuilding their lives after evictions, medical debt, job losses. They worked the land in exchange for housing, learning skills that would carry them forward. Maya ran through it all like a sprite, her stuffed lamb now joined by a real one, a bottle-fed rescue she'd named Dandelion. Landon visited every week, sometimes more. He'd traded tailored suits for work boots and sun-faded denim. His hands, once soft from boardroom comfort, grew calloused from fence repair and post-hole digging. He and Alma worked side by side, equals in sweat and purpose. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, they stood together on the porch. Maya was inside, reading to the younger children staying in the bunkhouse. The ranch hummed with quiet life, chickens settling into roosts, horses nickering softly, the distant sound of someone strumming a guitar. 3 weeks ago, I thought I was buying land, Landon murmured, eyes on the sunset. Alma smiled, leaning against the railing. What did you buy instead? He turned to her, and for a moment, the carefully constructed walls he'd spent a lifetime building were nowhere to be seen. Just a man. Just truth. Perspective. She held his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Not a declaration, not yet, but the beginning of something tender and real. Thank you, she said softly, for seeing us. Thank you for reminding me how to see. The local paper ran the story the following week. From fortune to faith, the billionaire who gave it all back. But the real story wasn't in headlines. It was in the way Maya no longer flinched at raised voices, in the way Alma laughed freely now without the weight of survival crushing every breath, in the way Landon slept through the night for the first time since his father died. It was in the garden, the children, the second chances taking root. One evening, as fireflies began their twilight dance, Maya sat on the porch steps beside Landon. She was writing in a journal Alma had given her, practicing her letters, documenting their days. Mr. Landon, she said, not looking up from her careful printing. Yeah, sweetheart. Mama says sometimes the richest people are the ones who finally learn how to give. She glanced up, eyes bright with curiosity. Are you rich now? He looked across the ranch, at the life blooming where emptiness had been, at the people finding home in a place he'd almost left to rot. Yeah, Maya, he said, voice thick. I think I finally am. Have you ever walked into a place expecting emptiness and found family instead? Sometimes the richest thing we can build isn't another business or estate, it's the courage to see people, not property. Landon Pierce bought land seeking silence. What he found was song. Because sometimes the home we're meant to find is already waiting, in the hearts of those we almost turned away. And sometimes the greatest fortune isn't what we own. It's who we become when we finally let go. Silver Creek Ranch still stands, not as a monument to wealth, but as proof that second chances can grow anywhere, as long as someone is brave enough to plant them.
Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. Leave a comment telling me what you felt. I read every single one. Until next time, keep believing in second chances.